Are you worried about what the Supreme Court's latest move means for your rights? Welcome to Global Facts. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight we examine a story at the heart of American identity, the ongoing struggle over gun rights and regulation. The Supreme Court's recent decision not to intervene in key gun cases has left the nation with a fractured legal landscape, where your rights depend on your zip code. This isn't just a legal debate, it's a question of public safety, personal liberty, and the very soul of the country. We'll explore the history, the court's decision, and what it means for Americans on both sides of this deeply divisive issue. To understand today's turmoil, we must revisit the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. For much of American history, courts saw this as a collective right tied to militias. That changed in recent decades, as gun rights advocates pushed for recognition of an individual right to own firearms, especially for self-defense. This shift led to a wave of legal challenges against long-standing gun control laws. The Supreme Court's silence for decades left a patchwork of state laws and confusion. But as the new millennium began, gun rights groups sought a definitive ruling, setting the stage for a legal showdown that would reshape the national conversation. The turning point in the modern debate over gun rights arrived in 2008, with the Supreme Court's landmark case, District of Columbia versus Heller. For decades, the meaning of the Second Amendment had been fiercely contested, with many courts upholding strict gun control laws and interpreting the amendment as protecting only a collective right tied to state militias. But Heller would change everything. In a historic 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled for the first time that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual's right to possess firearms, specifically for self-defense within the home. This was a dramatic shift from previous interpretations, and it sent shockwaves through the legal and political landscape. The decision struck down Washington, D.C.'s long-standing handgun ban, declaring it unconstitutional. This ruling set a powerful new constitutional standard, making it clear that the right to bear arms was not just a collective right, but a personal one. However, the court also emphasized that this right was not unlimited. It left open the door for certain regulations, such as prohibiting felons or the mentally ill from owning guns, and restricting firearms in sensitive places like schools and government buildings. Fast forward to 2022, and the Supreme Court once again reshaped the landscape with New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. This time, the court expanded the right to bear arms beyond the home, ruling that the Constitution protects the right to carry firearms in public for self-defense. The decision also introduced a new legal test. Gun laws must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. This history and tradition test fundamentally changed how courts evaluate gun laws. Instead of relying on modern policy arguments or balancing tests, judges now had to look back to the 18th and 19th centuries for guidance. The result was a wave of new lawsuits challenging a wide range of existing gun regulations, from licensing requirements to bans on certain types of firearms. States with some of the strictest gun laws, like Maryland and New Jersey, suddenly found themselves defending their regulations in court. Legal challenges mounted quickly, and uncertainty spread as lower courts struggled to apply the Supreme Court's new standard. Gun rights advocates celebrated the Bruin decision, seeing it as a powerful tool to dismantle gun control measures across the country. Meanwhile, opponents of the ruling voiced deep concerns, warning that it could undermine public safety and make it harder for states to address gun violence. As the legal battles intensified, all eyes turned to the Supreme Court once again, waiting for further guidance on just how far these newly expanded rights would reach and what the future of gun regulation in America would look like. In June 2025, the Supreme Court stunned the gun rights movement by refusing to hear challenges to Maryland's assault weapons ban and Rhode Island's magazine restrictions. This left those state laws intact, at least for now, and signaled a pause in the court's expansion of gun rights. Only 3 justices wanted to take the cases, leaving advocates 1 vote short. Justice Kavanaugh issued a statement questioning the lower court's reasoning but urged patience, suggesting the court would revisit the issue after more lower court rulings. The result? A patchwork of laws, with some states upholding strict bans and others striking them down. The Supreme Court's inaction has deepened legal confusion and frustration, especially for those expecting swift change after Bruin. In states like Maryland, bans remain, Elsewhere, similar laws have been overturned. The nation's legal map is more divided than ever. The court's decision not to take up these pivotal gun cases triggered immediate outrage among gun rights groups, who had been closely watching for a sign that the Supreme Court would further expand Second Amendment protections. Many activists and gun owners felt deeply betrayed after the landmark Bruin decision, which had raised hopes that restrictive state gun laws would soon be struck down. With a conservative majority on the bench, there was widespread belief that the court would move swiftly to dismantle state-level restrictions on firearms ownership and carry. But the justices' refusal to hear these cases abruptly halted that momentum, leaving many to question the court's commitment to gun rights. Gun owners argue that common firearms like the AR-15 are being unfairly targeted by state bans, and that these laws criminalize law-abiding citizens for owning popular weapons. For them, the court's silence is more than a disappointment. It's a signal that their constitutional rights may be eroding, and that the legal landscape is growing more uncertain. On the other side of the debate, gun control advocates and state officials welcome the court's inaction as a much-needed reprieve, seeing it as a chance to protect laws they believe are essential for public safety. For these groups, the decision means that states can continue to enforce measures they argue save lives, such as assault weapon bans and restrictions on high-capacity magazines. New Jersey's Attorney General praised the Supreme Court's move, emphasizing that states must retain the authority to regulate weapons frequently linked to mass shootings and gun violence. He argued that without such regulations, communities would be left more vulnerable to tragedies involving semi-automatic rifles and other powerful firearms. For families who have lost loved ones to gun violence, the court's move is seen as a victory for public safety and a small step toward preventing future heartbreak. The debate over gun laws remains deeply personal and emotional. While some see it as a fundamental issue of constitutional rights and individual freedom, others view it as a matter of protecting communities and preventing senseless tragedy. For every person who feels their rights are under attack, there is another who fears for the safety of their family and neighbors. The visible frustration and relief on both sides highlight just how high the stakes are and how divided the nation remains on this issue. The legal uncertainty created by the court's inaction leaves millions of Americans unsure of their rights and responsibilities, fueling confusion and anxiety across the country. As the fight over America's gun laws continues, one thing is clear: the debate is far from over, and the next chapter will be shaped by the voices and actions of people on both sides. The Supreme Court's inaction has intensified the political battle over guns. For Democrats, it's a green light to pass and defend strict state laws, energizing their base. Republicans see it as a call to action, fueling demands for more conservative judges and legislative pushback. The economic fallout is real. Gun makers and retailers face a maze of conflicting state laws, stifling investment and forcing some to relocate. Gun owners in states with bans face financial loss and legal risk, while advocacy groups on both sides pour millions into ongoing litigation. The patchwork of laws creates winners and losers, dividing states economically as well as politically. The legal uncertainty is costly for businesses and individuals alike. As the political divide deepens, the economic consequences grow. The nation's inability to find consensus is taking a toll far beyond the courtroom. The Supreme Court's divided approach has reshaped daily life across America. In some states, carrying a firearm is routine. In others, strict regulation is the norm. This legal patchwork creates tension and confusion, with rights changing at every state line. Law enforcement struggles to keep up, and citizens risk breaking the law simply by traveling. The divide influences where people live, work, and travel, and deepens mistrust between regions. For many, the debate is no longer abstract. It's a source of daily anxiety and stress. Parents worry about school safety. Communities remain polarized. Until the Supreme Court provides clarity, Americans must navigate this unsettled landscape on their own. Legal experts see the court's refusal as a strategic pause, not a reversal. This pause allows the court to observe how lower courts handle similar cases, providing a broader perspective on the issue. Some believe the justices want more lower court rulings before taking up the issue again, aiming for a stronger precedent. By doing so, they can ensure that any future ruling is well-grounded and reflective of a wider judicial consensus. Justice Kavanaugh's statement signals the court is watching and will act when the time is right. His words suggest a calculated approach, waiting for the most opportune moment to intervene. Others see a split within the conservative wing, with some justices hesitant to apply the history and tradition test to modern weapons like the AR-15. This internal division highlights the complexity of balancing historical context with contemporary issues. The court may be waiting for the right case to clarify the law, starting with less controversial issues. This cautious approach allows them to build a foundation before tackling more divisive topics. Meanwhile, the justices have agreed to hear a case on Hawaii's concealed carry law, showing they're still engaged in defining Second Amendment boundaries. This case could set a significant precedent for future rulings. The court's incremental approach leaves the nation in limbo. Citizens and lawmakers alike are left guessing about the future direction of Second Amendment jurisprudence. The internal divisions and strategic delays only add to the uncertainty. This uncertainty can lead to varied interpretations and enforcement of laws across different states. The next major ruling could reshape the debate once again. As the nation waits, the court's decisions will undoubtedly have far-reaching implications for the legal landscape. America's gun laws are more fractured than ever. The Supreme Court's landmark rulings expanded gun rights, but its recent inaction has left a patchwork of freedom and restriction. The fundamental questions remain. How do we balance individual rights with public safety? What does history and tradition mean for modern weapons? The court's next moves will be crucial. With new cases already on the docket, the legal, political, and social battles will continue, deepening divisions before any resolution emerges. The future of the Second Amendment is still being written, in courtrooms, legislatures, and communities across the nation. This debate belongs to all Americans, not just the justices. Thank you for watching. Good night.